The first thing she noticed was the quiet, not the soft, peaceful quiet of a home waiting for its people to return, but the stiff, charged stillness that felt like a held breath right before something breaks. Outside, October rain hammered the windows, droplets racing each other across the glass. Inside, the house was washed in one dim pool of lamplight, a strange sight for a place where John Cooper normally flicked on every switch as soon as he walked through the door. He once joked that it made the space feel warm for her when she came home from the hospital, even though it was late at night. Tonight, it felt ominous. Benta Lavender hesitated at the threshold, her fingers still curled around the doorknob, the other hand pressing unconsciously over the pocket where the ultrasound photo rested. It was supposed to be the happiest surprise of her life. Their life. She had left her shift early, something she never did during residency because she couldn't wait to see his expression when she told him. But the house told her something else entirely. A whisper of voices carried from the living room. One was his, tight and low. The other sharp, clipped, familiar in the worst way, belonged to Judith Cooper, her mother-in-law. She has been her antagonist since day one, a woman who weaponized politeness and perfected cruelty behind a church smile. Benta closed the door quietly, took a breath, walked toward the voices, her wet shoes leaving faint squeaks across the hardwood. Before she manipulates you further, Judith was saying, "Tonight, John. Do it tonight." Manipulates. Benta stopped short of the doorway, heart stuttering. Then John's voice, raw, exhausted, answered, "I need to think." "No." Judith hissed. "Thinking is how she gets to you. You've always been blind where she's concerned." The next squeak of Benta's shoe gave her away. Two faces turned toward her, Judith's hardened satisfaction and John's expression. God, that expression shocked, guilty, wounded, angry. All at once. "Hey," Benta whispered. "What's going on, Yama?" The kind that cracks down the middle right before disaster spills through. John stood slowly. He looked at her like he was afraid to speak, like anything he said might be a confession. On the coffee table lay a stack of legal papers, and beside them, a manila envelope half opened. Photographs spilling out like a crime scene. Her stomach dropped. Judith stepped in front of him, blocking the path between husband and wife, just as she had tried to block their marriage from the beginning. "Please don't go near him," she snapped. "You've done enough." "Enough." Benta's voice quivered, but not from fear. "What is this?" John swallowed hard. Then he pointed not at her, but at the photos. "I know." The ultrasound in her pocket warmed against her skin. "No." What he bent down, grabbed the envelope, and let the pictures scatter across the floor at her feet. Images of her and her attending physician, Dr. Wells, smiling while leaving the hospital and standing too close in a poorly timed frame and reaching for a chart that looked in the angle of a still photograph, like an intimate gesture. All of them framed with damning precision. All of them lie. Benta stared in disbelief. "These aren't John. This is nothing. This is work." Judith laughed softly behind him. "Work. Of course. That's what women like you always say. Women like you." The phrase hit with the ugly weight it carried. Even though no color was mentioned here tonight, it didn't need to be said twice. "Benta, John whispered, shaking his head. The investigator watched you for weeks. Your investigator. She shot back your mother's investigator. Judith's smile faltered. Just a hair. I hired him because I care about my son. It's what's best. No. Benta's voice shook with fury. What's best for whom you? What's best for John? Judith replied, unblinking. He deserves a woman he can trust. Benta wanted to scream, to claw through the lies, to force John to look at her and remember who she was. John, she said softly, pleading. We talked about starting a family, about kids, about our future. Are you really throwing all that away because of staged photographs? You don't know they're staged, he muttered. I know you don't want to know they're staged, she whispered. Something in him snapped. Just sign the papers. Benta. It felt like being stabbed in slow motion. Yet her hand drifted toward her pocket, brushing the ultrasound. A tiny heartbeat caught in grainy black and white, a future John clearly didn't want. No. She wouldn't give Judith the satisfaction, and she wouldn't give John the child, only to watch him weaponize distrust forever. With mechanical calm, she signed her name. Every stroke is a burial of a promise. When she finished, she set the pen down. You're going to regret this. Judith scoffed. We'll manage. No, Benta said, eyes locked on her husband. Not you. Him. Then she went upstairs, packed what she could, and returned to find John in the same spot he'd bowed, whiskey beside him, guilt already sinking claws into his chest. This is it, he whispered. Yes, she said. You made sure of that. He looked up with eyes glassy from fury and heartbreak. I hate you. The words hit, but she didn't flinch. Good, she replied. At least you feel something. Then something strange, volatile, inevitable, happened, something born of pain and love destroyed. He grabbed her wrist, desperate. She didn't pull away. The kiss was a battlefield. Their bodies collided with anger instead of tenderness, falling into every memory of what they once were and what they'd just shattered. When it ended, nothing was fixed. Everything was worse. She left the house carrying a suitcase, a broken heart, and a child she refused to tell him about. Rain soaked her hair as she stepped into the storm, whispering to her unborn daughter, Your father chose lies over us. That's his loss, not yours. At the red light 3 blocks away, she pulled out the ultrasound, pressed it to her chest, and breathed through her tears. Back in the house, John stared at the signed divorce papers as if they were a death certificate. And maybe they were. But neither knew their story was about to begin. Before we continue, if this chapter pulled you in, hit like, drop a comment, and subscribe for the next twist. Because things are about to get even more intense. The emergency room lights were too bright when Carnation Cooper Lavender was born. No father pacing, no family waiting. Only a nurse named Patricia was holding Benta's hand through the agony that felt like punishment and salvation wrapped together. Carnation arrived small but fierce, with wide copper eyes that made Benta's heart lurch. John's eyes. The resemblance was instant and undeniable. Hello, my flower, Benta whispered, pulling the baby close. It's just us now. And I promise, I won't fail you the way he failed me. The following 8 years reshaped them both. Benta rose from exhausted resident to a respected cardiologist, known for doing the impossible quiet brilliance, cold professionalism, and compassion that only patients ever saw. She rebuilt her life carefully, piece by piece, like stitching a wound that refused to close cleanly. Carnation grew like her name, bright, wild, impossible to ignore. She had her mother's determination, her father's analytical mind, and a curiosity sharp enough to cut through secrets. Their apartment was small, but it was full of warmth. Neighbors became family, routine became safety, and love, real love, was the core of everything. Benta hid their trail well, new address, new number, maiden name, no digital echoes. There was no chance for John to find them, or so she thought. Across the city, John Cooper lived in quiet punishment. Wealth multiplied, success came easily, but none of it could fill the void. His penthouse felt like a tomb, its silence louder than any argument he'd ever had with Benta. He never remarried, never moved on. Every woman felt like a counterfeit version of what he'd lost. And then his mother died. While sorting through her papers, he discovered the real investigator's report, the one that proved Benta's innocence and exposed Judith's staged photos. He'd destroyed his marriage over nothing. He'd betrayed the only woman who ever loved him. He'd thrown away a family that could have been his whole world. The guilt nearly killed him. He spent years searching for her. But Benta had vanished with surgical precision. No trace, no leads, nothing but memories and a ring he kept in his pocket, worn thin from constant turning. Meanwhile, grief twisted into something worse. Chest pains, tightening, squeezing, echoes of a heart trying to give up. The doctors called it stress-related. John called it karma. Back in their modest apartment, Carnation studied her reflection one morning. "Mama," she asked, "why don't I look like you?" Benta froze, hands mid-air with her hairbrush. She'd rehearsed this moment for years. But the real thing hit harder than she expected. "Because you look like someone I once loved," she said softly. "Someone who couldn't stay. Did he die?" "In a way." Benta answered, "The man I loved died, and someone else took his place." Carnation considered it like a scientist evaluating data. But her eyes, so sharp and full of suspicion, warned Benta that the truth wouldn't stay buried forever. And she was right. The questions grew. The curiosity sharpened. The silences between them deepened. One night, Carnation asked Mama, "Did my father want to stop being a family?" The question sliced clean through Benta's defenses. "He didn't know about you," she said. "Why?" "Because I left before I could tell him." "Why? Because..." "Sometimes people show you who they really are." Carnation said nothing, but something in her gaze shifted, and it wouldn't be long before that shift cracked everything wide open. Because somewhere else, in a quiet penthouse full of regrets, John Cooper lay awake again, pressing Benta's old ring into his palm, whispering, "Please, let me find her." The universe heard him. However, the reunion ahead would not be the salvation he had hoped for. It would be an earthquake, and it would begin in the one place neither expected: a hospital and a doctor named Dr. B. Lavender. The morning began like any other: clipped footsteps down the cardiology wing, the hum of machines, the sharp scent of antiseptic, and the soft murmur of nurses exchanging updates. Dr. Benta Lavender reviewed the patient board as she sipped her lukewarm coffee, already calculating dosages, outcomes, and worst-case scenarios before even stepping into the first room. Her phone buzzed. Patricia texted, "New admit. Middle-aged male. Syncope. Chest pain. Your primary." Nothing unusual until she saw the name on the chart. John Cooper. Her pulse stumbled. The lights tilt for half a second. She blinked once, twice, reminding herself she was at work, reminding herself she could not afford to fall apart here. For 8 years, she'd trained her emotions to sit still behind a locked door, but that door now rattled on its hinges. She stared at the name again, waiting for some rational explanation. A duplicate name. Perhaps. A glitch. But the birth date matched. The address matched. The emergency contact line was blank. Nothing unusual for him. The notes listed recurrent chest tightness and collapse in the public area. A coldness spread through her. Nurses were already watching her, waiting for her call. She cleared her throat, forced professionalism into place like armor, and handed back the chart. "I'll take it," she said. It felt like walking toward a wound she'd stitched shut years ago, only to discover it never healed right beneath the surface. Room 407 was partially lit, curtains half drawn. Machines beeped softly, monitoring vitals that wavered like a troubled tide. And there he was, John, lying in the hospital bed, skin pale with stress, jawline still sharp, hair darker now, peppered with threads of gray. He looked older, but the kind of older, carved not by time, but by regret. He didn't see her at first. His eyes were closed, breath shallow, fingers twitching as if trapped in some uneasy dream. She stepped inside, each foot heavier than the last, her doctor's coat suddenly feeling too tight. She approached the bed, staring at the face she once memorized, like scripture. Memories flickered somewhere in the back of her mind. His laugh, his warmth, the way he once held her after long shifts, as though he could shield her from everything. And then, the later memories, his anger, his disbelief, the venom in his voice, the night he chose lies over love. She forced her voice steady. "Mr. Cooper." He opened his eyes. For a moment, he seemed confused, unfocused until recognition slammed into him like a physical blow. Benta. The sound of her name in his mouth nearly unmade her. She lifted her chin. "You experienced a syncopal episode. You're at City Memorial." His gaze drank her in 1,000 questions. Apologies. Confessions trapped behind his eyes. But she refused to let herself drown in old currents. "I'll be your cardiologist," she said, keeping her tone clipped and professional. "We need to run additional tests." He swallowed hard, his voice rough. You're here. You're real." She didn't respond. "You look..." He stopped himself. "I don't have the right to say anything." "Do I?" "No," she said quietly. "You don't?" Pain flickered across his face, but she ignored it. She pulled out her stethoscope, leaning in to examine him. His heartbeat was irregular, skipping beats like a broken rhythm. She noted the pattern, then straightened. "You've been ignoring symptoms," she said. "For how long?" Years. He whispered. Of course, he had. And you haven't been taking any prescribed medication? He hesitated. She sighed. John. The way his name slipped from her lips, gentle, accidental, made him breathe sharply, as though hearing something long lost. His voice cracked. I didn't think I deserved to get better. She froze. Then she stepped back, putting distance between them. This isn't about what you deserve. It's about your health. He blinked at her, eyes glassy. Do you hate me? Her throat tightened. We're not discussing the past. This is a hospital, not whatever you want it to be. Then why won't you look at me? His voice was soft, broken. She stiffened. Stop. I thought I'd never see you again, he whispered. I looked everywhere. I said stop. He swallowed whatever words were growing. She turned away, pretending to review the monitor, because if she let herself see him, really see him, she might collapse under 8 years of suppressed pain. A knock sounded at the door. Carnation rushed in, her backpack bouncing, her curls wild, eyes bright. Mama. They said you... She stopped mid-sentence. Her gaze flicked to the man in the bed. Her eyes widened, analyzing him with a scrutiny that was instinctive, inherited. John froze. The world narrowed to 3 heartbeats, hers, his, theirs. Carnation took one cautious step forward. Who is he? Benta's heart twisted. She hadn't been ready for this moment. Not here. Not like this. But fate, cruel and theatrical, cared nothing for her plans. John whispered, Is this? Benta placed a hand between him and the truth. You're a patient. That's all. His eyes filled with a grief so naked, she nearly looked away. Carnation tilted her head, studying him more closely. Why do you look like me? John's breath hitched. Benta's heart slammed against her ribs. So much for control. Carnation stepped closer. What's your name? John swallowed. John. There was a long beat. Then the girl whispered, I think I know you. Benta's composure cracked. A hairline fracture she couldn't hide. Carnation, sweetie. Wait outside. But Mama now. The child's face tightened in frustration, but she left, pulling the door shut behind her with a soft click. John looked shattered. Benta, please, is she mine? She didn't answer. Instead, she gathered her notes, turned toward the door, and braced herself before speaking. Focus on getting better, she said. Nothing else matters right now. But when she stepped into the hall, closing the door behind her, she pressed her forehead against the cool wall and let out a shaky breath, because the storm she had outrun for 8 years had finally caught her, and there was no shelter left. Carnation sat on a waiting room chair, swinging her legs, brows furrowed in deep concentration. No child her age should have been able to piece people together the way she did. But she'd always been perceptive in ways that unnerved even Benta. The moment her mother stepped out, Carnation hopped up. Mama, is he my... We're not talking about this right now. But no. Sharp. Absolute. Carnation froze, hurt flashing across her expression. You always do that. Do what? Please close the door before I finish my sentence. Benta inhaled slowly. Sweetheart, this isn't the place. Then, where is the place? Carnation's voice trembled. You promised you'd tell me when the time was right. It's been not the time for 8 years. The word stung. Benta's jaw clenched. You will know, she said, forcing calm. But not today. Carnation looked toward the room again, eyes shimmering with a mixture of fear, hope, and something like instinctual recognition. Why did he look at me like that? Because he was confused. That's not what it looked like. Before Benta could respond, a nurse rushed over. Dr. Lavender. Cooper's blood pressure just dropped. We need you. Carnation grabbed her sleeve. Can I come? No. Stay here. Don't move. Mama, don't move. And then she was gone. John's monitors screamed as Benta burst into room 407. Nurses were already inside, adjusting IV lines, stabilizing leads. What happened? She demanded. He reported dizziness. Then his pressure tanked. The nurse replied, Any arrhythmias, PVC's increasing. Damn it. Benta moved to the bedside. John, can you hear me? His eyes fluttered. Benta, don't let me die without focus, she snapped, ignoring the crack in his voice. You need to breathe. He gave a weak laugh. I haven't been able to breathe right since you left. Her chest tightened, but she kept her hands steady as she examined him. You're experiencing acute decompensation, she said. I need to stabilize you before we run the lab tests. His fingers curled weakly, searching for her hand or for forgiveness. She didn't know. She didn't offer either. You'll be okay if you follow orders, she said. Can you do that? For you, he whispered. Always. The sincerity in his tone shook her. She stepped back, needing the distance. Prepare IV magnesium. She ordered Page cardiothoracic backup. The room moved around her, loud yet distant. She worked quickly and expertly, refusing to let her personal history cloud her judgment. But every time John winced, her heart responded before her mind could stop it. When the episode subsided and his pressure stabilized, the tension in her shoulders loosened, but only barely. He sighed shakily. You saved me. I'm your doctor. That's what I do. No, he said gently. You saved me. She swallowed. Rest. She turned to leave, but his voice caught her again. Benta. She stopped, back still turned, seeing her. His voice cracked. It was like looking at the world I destroyed with my own hands. Her breath faltered. She looks like me, he whispered. Doesn't she silence? Then she has your stubbornness, he added, a sad smile in his voice. Benta's throat burned. She forced herself to face him again, even if doing so nearly broke her. This isn't the time to talk about her, she said. He nodded slowly. Then when you're stable. What if I don't make it to stable? Don't say that. It's the truth. She exhaled sharply. You're not going to die. John, you don't know that. Yes, she said, voice low and fierce. I do. He stared at her as though she were the first breath after drowning. I never stopped loving you, he whispered. Her heart lurched, but she held the door before it could crumble. Don't, she said. You don't get to say that to me. He nodded, accepting the blow. Then at least tell me this. Did I have a daughter? Her fingers curled around the doorframe. Get some rest, she said softly, and she left before the tears could fall. In the hall, she found Carnation pressed against the wall, listening. Were you eavesdropping? Carnation didn't deny it. Is he going to die? No. How do you know? Because I won't let him. Something softened in Carnation's eyes. You still care about him. That's not what I said. But it's what you meant. Benta stared at her daughter, the child born from love and broken by its absence, and wondered how much longer she could protect her from the truth. Let's go home, she said. Carnation glanced toward the door of room 407. He looked at you like you were the thing he lost. Benta's voice was barely a whisper. He did lose me. And me. The truth hit them both hard. Before she could gather a response, Carnation took her hand not to be led, but to lead her away from the pain neither of them was ready to confront. But the storm wasn't finished, because the next day, fate would not ask permission. It would simply change everything. Again. The day after John's collapse, Benta arrived earlier than she needed to, earlier than she wanted to admit had anything to do with him. Her coat swayed against her legs as she walked, clipboard tucked under her arm, her face neutral and unbothered, even though her pulse wouldn't settle. Room 407 was quiet when she stepped in. Too quiet. John was awake, sitting up, staring at the window as if the sky held answers he'd been chasing for years. His profile was somber, sharper in the morning light. He looked less like the man who once swept her into dreams, and more like someone still living inside a nightmare he helped create. You're awake, she said, pausing at the foot of the bed. He looked over, and for a heartbeat, everything in his gaze softened gratitude, longing, grief merging into something delicate but dangerous. I didn't sleep much, he admitted. You need rest. I need answers. She inhaled, bracing. John. He lifted a hand. I'm not asking for forgiveness. I know I don't deserve it. I need to understand. I saw her yesterday, and everything inside me, everything I thought died, just woke up. She didn't speak, and the silence stretched long between them. She's mine, he whispered. Isn't she? Benta kept her voice steady. Your tests are scheduled for this afternoon. We'll review your results when they're ready. He let out a frustrated breath. I'm sick. Not stupid. I'm not discussing this while you're unstable. I'm unstable because I saw the daughter you kept from me. Her eyes flashed. Do not twist this. I'm not. Yes, you are. She cut in, stepping closer, anger simmering beneath her composure. You don't get to rewrite history. You chose your mother over me. You chose suspicion over trust. You pushed me away with lies and accusations. You threw away our marriage. His voice cracked. I know. And you expect me to hand you a child you didn't even look for properly. His expression twisted. I did look every day. She didn't want to hear it. Not now. Not when the wound inside her still pulsed. I came back to a house with every trace of you gone, he said softly. Every drawer is empty. Every picture frame was wiped clean. You disappeared like you never existed. I looked. Benta, I begged the police. I hired investigators. You were gone without a single breadcrumb. You didn't deserve breadcrumbs." He flinched. For a moment. The only sound was the steady beep of his heart monitor, irregular, tired, betraying every emotion he tried to contain. A knock interrupted them. Nurse Patricia peeked inside. "Doctor, your next consult is waiting." "Thank you," Benta said. As she turned to go, John reached for her, not touching, but reaching. "I need to see her again," he whispered. "Please." Her voice dropped low. "Dangerous. Do not approach my daughter." "You mean our daughter." "She is mine," Benta said. Clipped. Fierce. Trembling ironically with the very love he feared he'd never get to feel. "I raised her. I protected her. I shielded her from the kind of pain you inflicted on me. And I deserve the pain," he murmured. "Not her. Let me carry it. Not her." Her throat tightened, but she forced herself to walk out. For the next few days, John became a ghost, haunting the edges of their routine. Not in a predatory way, not in a threatening way, in a desperate, heartbreakingly gentle way. Carnation noticed him first. Every morning as Benta dropped her off at school, a sleek black SUV was parked near the corner. A tall man watched from inside, not approaching, not waving, not intruding, just watching. Carnation whispered, "Mama, he's here again." Benta tightened her grip on the steering wheel. "Ignore him." "But why is he hiding?" "He's not hiding. He's keeping his distance." "Why?" "Because I told him to." Carnation studied her mother carefully. "Are you scared of him?" "No." Benta said too quickly. "Then why do you look scared?" Benta didn't answer. She kissed Carnation's forehead and watched the girl run toward the school gates. When she glanced back at the SUV, John lifted a hand in the faintest, saddest greeting before driving away. It hurt, and the hurt angered her. Later that week, she ran into him outside the pharmacy after her shift. He wasn't expecting to see her. The surprise on his face was painfully raw. "You shouldn't be here," she said. "I didn't know you'd be coming out. You've been following me. I've been watching over you," he corrected softly. "From a distance, like you asked." "I didn't ask. I demanded. And I listened." The restraint in his voice unnerved her. This wasn't the reactive man she'd left. This wasn't the son who hid behind his mother's shadow. This was a man carrying 8 years of remorse in his bones. "Benta," he said, stepping just close enough for his voice to lower. "I don't want to scare her. I don't want to disrupt your life. I wish to catch a glimpse of her smile." Her chest tightened. "You can't have that." He nodded, not angrily, not defensively, just accepting a blow he knew he deserved. "If that's what you want," he murmured. "It is." He swallowed hard. "Then I'll step back." She didn't expect that. He looked at her one more time like a prayer that had already been denied and walked away. No begging, no pleading, no demands, just quiet resignation. And somehow, that hit her harder than anything else he could have done. But fate wasn't done. 2 days later, as Benta parked outside Carnation's school, she saw a crowd gathered. Teachers rushed in and out, their phones raised. As someone shouted for help, panic shot through her chest. She sprinted. Then she saw her daughter on the ground, pale, clutching her chest, surrounded by frightened students. Carnation Benta dropped to her knees beside her. Carnation's breath came rapid and shallow. "Mama, I can't. Breathe." "What happened?" Benta demanded. A teacher stammered. She was running during PE and suddenly collapsed. All 911. We did. A shadow moved through the crowd. John. He pushed past teachers without hesitation, dropping beside them, face white with terror. "What happened?" He breathed. Benta snarled, "Get back." But Carnation reached out a trembling hand. "No. Stay." Her small fingers curled around his, and he stayed. The hospital emergency team arrived minutes later, loading Carnation onto a stretcher. Benta climbed in, gripping her daughter, panic clawing up her throat. John tried to follow. "You can't come." Benta snapped. "I'm not leaving you or her," he said, voice breaking. "Not this time. John, let me be here." Carnation, weak, trembling, barely conscious, whispered, "Mama, let him." Benta hesitated. For the first time in 8 years, her daughter asked for something she couldn't deny. She stepped aside, and John climbed in. During the ride, Carnation drifted in and out. Each time she opened her eyes, she looked at John, not with confusion, but with recognition that defied logic. When they reached the hospital, the staff rushed her inside. John turned to follow. Benta blocked him with her palm. "This doesn't change anything. She's my daughter," he said softly. "It changes everything." She trembled, but didn't move. "Let me help," he begged. "Let me at least sit in the waiting room. I won't come near you if you don't want me to." She searched his face, every regret, every ounce of love, every silent plea, and something inside her cracked under the weight. She stepped aside again. Hours later, when Carnation finally stabilized, Benta left the room long enough to breathe in the hallway. John stood at the window down the corridor, hands in pockets, staring at nothing with a brokenness that drained all color from the world. When he saw her, he froze. "Is she?" "She's stable," Benta whispered. His shoulders slumped, relief crumbling into trembling. A tear slipped down his cheek before he could hide it. She had never seen him cry. He wiped it away quickly. Thank God. She swallowed. The episode might be genetic. She needs monitoring, tests, follow-ups. He nodded, jaw tightening. "Tell me what to do." His readiness, so immediate, so absolute, shook her. "This will be complicated," she said. "I don't care. I do." "I know," he whispered. "But please, let me be here." Before she could respond, a small voice floated from behind her. Mama Carnation stood in the doorway, unsteady but awake. Her gaze traveled between them. Mother, father, truth. And then she said words that made both of them freeze. "Can I talk to him?" A lone Carnation's request hung in the air, fragile yet robust. Benta blinked, unsure she'd heard correctly. "You want to talk to him? Alone?" she repeated. Carnation nodded. "Yes." John looked between them, hesitant. "It's okay if she doesn't want me." "I do," Carnation said softly. Her voice cracked on the last word, revealing a vulnerability she rarely showed. Benta's instinct screamed to protect her, but from what John wasn't the villain she once painted him as. Not anymore. He looked terrified, humbled, desperate for a chance he didn't dare hope for. After a beat, Benta moved aside. "You have 5 minutes," she said. "If she gets tired, I'm coming in." Carnation smiled faintly. "I'll be fine." John stepped into the room with the cautious reverence of someone entering sacred ground. Benta stayed at the door, arms crossed, watching every movement as though her gaze alone could shield her daughter from heartbreak. Carnation sat up slowly, adjusting her gown. John approached the bed, maintaining a respectful distance. "Hi," he whispered. "Hi." Carnation replied, voice timid. For a moment, neither spoke. Then Carnation tilted her head. "You're my father." John inhaled sharply. I think so. Yes. Do you not know?" He gave a broken smile. "Your mother hasn't confirmed it yet." Carnation studied him. "But you knew the second you saw me." "Yes," he whispered. You look like a part of me I thought I'd lost." Carnation's cheeks warmed. "Mama said you were confused." "I wasn't confused," he said softly. "I was shocked and ashamed and grateful, all at once." Carnation frowned. "What are you ashamed of?" John's throat worked. "Hurting your mother. Why did you hurt her?" His eyes glistened. "Because I believed something that wasn't true. Because I was weak. Because I trusted the wrong person. Because I didn't fight for her the way I should have." Carnation absorbed that like an adult, her gaze steady, probing. "So you didn't want to leave us?" "I never wanted to leave anything," he said, voice cracking. "I didn't even know you existed. If I had known about you, nothing on earth would have kept me away." Carnation's lips quivered. "Did you look for us?" He nodded. "Every day. For years." "Why didn't you find us?" "Because your mother is wise," he said with a gentle, sad laugh. "And when she wants to disappear, she's better than any investigator." Carnation glanced toward the doorway, where Benta stood, tense and listening. "Do you love her?" she asked suddenly. John's eyes closed more than anything. "Still always." Carnation looked at her hands. "Do you love me?" He knelt beside her bed, tears finally escaping. "I love you without even knowing you yet. I love you because you're mine. I love you because you exist." A single tear rolled down Carnation's cheek. "That's good," she whispered, "because I think I wanted a dad." John's breath hitched so violently he had to steady himself on the mattress. "Can I hug you?" she asked. He looked toward Benta instinctively. She hesitated, but didn't stop them. John opened his arms slowly, giving her every second to change her mind. Carnation leaned forward, and he gathered her gently, like holding something he'd dreamed of, but never believed he'd touch. His shoulders shook with silent sobs. "Mama said you hurt her," Carnation murmured against his chest. "But she didn't tell you that you weren't good." John's voice shook. "I wasn't good, sweetheart. I wasn't brave enough. Are you brave now?" He pulled back so he could look her in the eyes. "I'm brave enough for you." Carnation smiled, small and wobbly. Then you should try again. Try what? Try to be in our lives. John froze. Benta stiffened in the doorway. Carnation continued. Mama won't say it, but I think she's tired of being sad. And I think you're tired of being miserable, too. John swallowed, staring at her in awe. You're remarkable. Carnation shrugged. Mama says I'm dramatic. He laughed softly. That too. She squeezed his hand. Talk to her. She won't listen. She will if you talk right. John huffed a shaky breath. What does that mean? Don't talk like a grown-up, Carnation said. Grown-ups lie. Talk like someone who's scared of losing her twice. John looked toward the doorway at the woman he once loved more than himself, the woman he'd betrayed, the woman who was still the axis of every regret he carried. She didn't move. Carnation whispered, Go. He stood, took a step, but stopped inches from Benta. His voice shook. Can we talk? Her jaw tightened. This isn't the time. Then tell me when the time is. When I decide. He nodded. Okay. Then I'll wait. She turned away. But he added softly, I'm not leaving again. Even if you never let me in, I'll be near. Not to invade, but to protect. She closed her eyes. John, I'll earn it, he said. Whatever you need me to be, whatever she needs me to be, I'll do it. Silence hung between them. Then Carnation spoke from the bed, voice sleepy, but certain. Mama, yes, don't wait too long. And something in Benta's heart shifted, small but irrevocable. Because her daughter was right, and the time they'd all been running from was closing in fast. The hospital released Carnation 2 days later with strict follow-up instructions, a portable monitor, and orders to avoid strenuous activity. Benta held every discharge paper with clinical composure, but her insides were tangled threads of fear, relief, and something she refused to name when it came to John. John shadowed them at the proper distance, neither inserting himself nor disappearing. He lingered in doorways. He stepped back when Benta approached. He waited for cues, for permission that never fully came. On the ride home, Carnation watched him through the rear window of the ambulance transport van, a tiny figure standing alone in the parking lot, hands in his pockets, trying to look less devastated than he was. Mama, Carnation murmured. He's sad. Don't worry about him, Benta said too quickly. But I do. Benta didn't reply. At home, Carnation settled into the couch with blankets, juice, and the portable monitor clipped to her shirt. She looked small, too small for the world's complications. Benta checked her pulse for the 7th time in an hour. Mama. Carnation sighed. I'm not going to explode. That's not funny, but you're staring at me as if I might. That's because I'm concerned. Carnation made a face. You're doing that thing where you worry so much you forget to breathe. Am I? Yes. A beat. And he does the same thing. Benta tensed. Who? She raised a brow. Oh, Benta muttered. No, we're not doing that. Doing what? Talking about him every 3 minutes. Well, Carnation said innocently, I could talk about my heart, but that would make you cry. Benta shut her eyes briefly. Please rest. I will if you stop pacing. I'm not pacing. Yes, You are. You've made a path in the rug. A knock sounded at the door. Carnation looked at her with an expression that needed no translation. It's him. Benta opened the door with a mixture of irritation and dread, but John wasn't on the threshold. A small bag of groceries sat on the mat. Beside it, a note in neat handwriting. For Carnation low-sodium broth, fresh fruit, and ginger tea mix. For you if you want it. I'll stay outside until you say otherwise. Jay. Carnation peeked over her mother's shoulder. Is that for me? Can I see the note? No. Carnation crossed her arms. You're doing that thing again. Benta glared. What thing? Hiding feelings. I'm not hiding. She stopped herself. She was absolutely hiding. Carnation opened the door wider, forcing Benta to either step aside or block her like a shield. Benta stepped aside. Carnation lifted the grocery bag, reading the label on a box. He remembered, I like ginger tea. How would he remember that Benta asked? Mama. Maybe because you used to drink it too. Benta's breath caught. Memories brushing against her like ghosts. Carnation leaned into her. Can he come in? For a little bit. No. But no. Carnation stared at her. Why are you so scared of him? I'm not scared. Then open the door. I said no. Carnation's voice softened. He didn't run when I fell. He didn't hide. He didn't ask you for anything. He just showed up. That doesn't erase the past. No. Carnation whispered. But maybe it's the beginning of something different. Benta turned away before tears surfaced. She refused to open that door literally or emotionally. But late that night, when Carnation finally fell asleep, Benta cracked the window for air. Outside, across the street, under the orange glow of a street lamp, stood John, leaning against his car and not watching, not waiting, just there. She closed the curtains tightly. The following week was a delicate dance. John respected every boundary. He didn't show up uninvited. He didn't hover at school. He didn't call. He didn't push. He only appeared when Carnation asked, and vanished the moment Benta's voice sharpened. Carnation noticed everything. One evening, after a follow-up appointment, they found John sitting on a bench outside the hospital, not expecting them. I breathed in the evening air. Carnation approached him while Benta hung back. Are you okay? She asked. John smiled faintly. Better now that you're out here. Carnation sat beside him. Mama says you have a heart problem, too. He nodded. Yeah. Stress. Regret. A lifetime of stuff I didn't deal with. Carnation said softly. Mama won't tell me what really happened. She only says you hurt her. I did, he whispered. Why? He sighed because I listened to someone I shouldn't have. Because I was afraid she didn't love me as much as I loved her. Because sometimes people ruin good things when they think they're protecting themselves. Carnation absorbed his words like water soaking through soil. Do you love her now? She asked. Yes. He said, a truth spoken without hesitation. And do you want to be my dad? I don't want to be. He said, I already am, if you'll have me. Carnation's brows lifted. Even if Mama hates you, he exhaled slowly. Even then. She pointed toward her mother. Then talk to her. He looked at Benta standing rigidly near the entrance. She doesn't want me to. Then don't talk to her like a man begging to fix the past, Carnation said, repeating her earlier wisdom. Talk like someone who wants to be part of the future. He stared at her with awe. You're incredible, he whispered. Carnation shrugged. I know. When John approached Benta, she braced herself. I didn't ask you to speak with her, she said. I know. She asked me. That doesn't make it okay. I'm not trying to step over you. Then don't. He paused before saying quietly, I want to co-parent. She almost laughed, sharp. Dangerous. Absolutely not. Then give me something. One thing. A chance to earn your trust. Can you earn it? I'm going to try. Whether you believe in me or not. She felt the ground shift beneath her. He continued, I want to be at her next checkup. Not because I deserve to be, but because she deserves both of us. His words hit her with painful accuracy. What you deserve, she said slowly, is accountability. No access. I'll take both. He murmured in whatever order you choose. Something in his voice quiet, humble, determined, stirred a buried ache. She turned away. We'll see. It wasn't yes. It wasn't. But it was more than he had a week ago. That night, Carnation crept into her mother's bedroom. Mama. Are you awake? Yes. Carnation climbed onto the bed and curled beside her. Why are you so scared? I'm not scared. You are, Carnation said gently. You hide it well. But I see it. Benta didn't respond. Mama, Carnation whispered. I don't want to grow up watching you run. Those words pierced deeper than any wound. Mama, Carnation murmured sleepily. Yes, if he makes you cry again. I'll fight him, despite everything. Benta smiled. I know you will. But if he makes you smile, can I keep him? Tears burned behind Benta's eyes. We'll see, she whispered. But her heart, traitorous and trembling, already knew the answer. Carnation's next follow-up appointment was scheduled for Tuesday afternoon. Benta intended to keep it small and controlled, just mother and daughter. No complications, no ghosts from the past. But at 2:41 p.m., as the elevator doors opened on the cardiology floor, John stepped out of another elevator across the hall. Carnation lit up instantly. Mama. He came. He wasn't invited, Benta muttered. But John didn't stride toward them with confidence. He walked with caution, each step a question. He stopped at a polite distance away. If this is too much, I can leave, he said quietly. Carnation shook her head. Stay. Benta's mouth tightened. John added gently, It's her appointment. I'll sit where you want. I'll speak only if asked. His restraint again undermined her annoyance. She turned away before her heart betrayed her. Fine, she said. Carnation clapped softly. They followed the nurse inside. Tests were done. ECG lines printed out. Carnation handled the process with bravery, though her grip tightened each time a lead was attached. During an ultrasound scan, her eyes drifted toward John. Do hearts always look like that? She asked. John smiled. I think yours looks stronger than mine. Carnation grinned. Mama says mine's stubborn. Then you get that from her. Carnation nodded, then pointed to the monitor. See that little dip? That's where Mama says my heart sometimes skips. John's voice softened. Mine does that too. Carnation tilted her head. Maybe we're twins. Maybe. The tenderness between them wrapped around the room like a slow-building warmth that Benta pretended not to feel. After the tests, the doctor in the white coat entered, not Benta this time, but her colleague, Dr. Rao. I have the results, he said, flipping through the chart. The arrhythmia is mild and manageable. Monitoring is necessary, but there's no immediate cardiac threat. Carnation exhaled in relief. John sagged slightly. Benta felt the tension ease from her spine. However, Dr. Rao added, there is something else. The room froze. Dr. Rao pointed to a genetic marker listed in the notes. Carnation's rhythm variant matches a familial pattern. It's rare but distinctive. Carnation blinked. Does that mean Dr. Rao nodded. It has to come from one of her biological parents. He looked between the adults. Mr. Cooper, he said gently. This variant is also present in your file. It's hereditary. John inhaled sharply. Carnation whispered, so he's really my dad. Benta's breath trembled. Doctor? Rao smiled. Medically speaking. Yes. Without question. The world tilted. Carnation let out a tiny, joyful gasp and threw her arms around John. He hugged her back with a tenderness that shattered something open inside Benta. Then Carnation looked at her mother. Mama, she breathed. You don't have to hide anymore. Benta's vision blurred. Dr. Rao excused himself respectfully, leaving the three alone in a silence thick with revelation. John stepped toward Benta carefully, as if approaching a wounded animal. You never had to tell me, he said. I would have believed you, but hearing it, seeing it. He covered his face briefly, trying to compose himself. I missed everything. First words, first steps, first laugh, first day of school, every moment gone. Because of me. Benta swallowed. Don't do this here. Where else should I do it? He whispered. Where else should I break for the family? I should have had. Carnation squeezed his hand. Daddy, don't cry. That single word, Daddy, hit him with the force of 8 lost years. He knelt in front of her. I'm right here. I'm not going anywhere. Carnation nodded, then looked at her mother again. Mama. Yes. Are you mad if I call him that? A tear finally slipped down Benta's cheek. No, she whispered. I'm not mad. Carnation beamed. John stared at Benta breathless, hopeful, terrified. She turned away, unable to hold his gaze, but he reached out, stopping just short of touching her arm. Please let me in, he said softly. Not all at once, not fast, not more than you can handle. But let me be here. Let me be something in her world, and maybe one day, something in yours. Her heart stuttered. I don't know if I can trust you, she said. I know, he replied, but I'll spend the rest of my life proving you can. Carnation watched them, eyes wide with a wisdom beyond her years. Mama, she whispered, don't break his heart again. It broke first. Benta murmured, But you can fix each other, Carnation said. Benta's hands shook. It's not that simple. Carnation smiled knowingly. It could be. Benta looked at John, really looked at him, and saw not the man who broke her, but the man desperately trying to rebuild what he shattered. And that frightened her more than anything, because she wanted him to succeed, and wanting him was the one thing she'd sworn never to feel again. The days after the genetic confirmation moved like shifting ground, steady one moment, trembling the next. Benta created boundaries, wrote them down, erased them, rewrote new ones, and tore those up as well. Meanwhile, John followed every rule she gave him with the discipline of a man terrified of losing a second chance. He didn't push. He didn't invade. He showed up for the moments he was allowed quiet, steady, present. Carnation blossomed with him near. And Benta struggled. She tried to bury her emotions under medical reports, work shifts, and routine. But John's presence hummed in the background of everything. It was impossible to ignore the change in their world. It all came to a head on a Saturday morning. Carnation had been begging for a family outing, something small, something simple. Benta resisted until she could no longer do so. Her daughter wanted joy, not tension, and joy mattered. So Benta agreed to a picnic at Rose Park. The sky was clear, the trees swaying gently. Carnation ran ahead toward a fountain, laughing in a way she hadn't since before her episode. John carried the picnic basket. Benta walked beside him, arms crossed, pretending she wasn't hyper-aware of the faint brush of his sleeve near hers. "You don't have to carry everything," she said. "I want to." "You don't have to want to." "I still do." Her breath hitched, but she kept walking. Carnation spread the blanket and pointed at the space to her right. "Mama sits here. Daddy sits here." Benta's pulse stumbled. She opened her mouth to correct the title, but Carnation looked so hopeful that she didn't have the heart. So she sat. John sat. Carnation leaned into both of them, a living bridge binding two hearts that had once shattered apart. As they ate, Carnation chattered about school, stories, and dreams. John listened with unfiltered awe, as though memorizing every word. Benta watched him, saw the softness in his features, the way he glowed watching their daughter laugh. A pang tore through her. Carnation finished her meal and hopped up. "I'm going to explore. Don't leave." She ran toward a patch of wildflowers. Benta started to rise, protective instinct firing, but John gently touched her arm. "She'll be okay. You don't know that." He gave a sad smile. "You carry everything alone. You never let anyone help." "Because I learned not to depend on anyone," she said. He winced, and she regretted the cruelty instantly. "John, I didn't mean—" "You did," he whispered. "And you're right. I wasn't dependable. I let someone else's voice override everything I knew about you. That's on me." Silence stretched, thick with old wounds. Then John spoke again, soft. "Careful, Benta. What would it take for you to forgive me?" Her answer was quiet but sharp. "Time, proof, and safety." He nodded slowly. "Then I'll give you all three." She looked away. "It's not that simple. It doesn't have to be simple," he murmured. "It just has to be true." Before she could respond, the wind shifted and something uneasy prickled across her skin. Carnation was no longer in the field of wildflowers. Benta shot to her feet, panic spiking so fast it stole her breath. Carnation John stood instantly. She was right there. They scanned the park. She was nowhere to be found. Carnation Benta shouted, voice cracking, "Mama!" A faint cry. They both ran. They found her near a small grove of trees, curled on the ground, clutching her chest, gasping. Benta dropped beside her. "Baby, what happened? It hurts." Carnation wheezed. "It hurts again." John swept her into his arms without hesitation. "I'll drive. Get the bag." Benta grabbed the emergency kit and sprinted alongside him. Her hands shook as she prepared the portable monitor. Carnation's breathing hitched, shallow and rapid. Her eyes fluttered. Everything inside Benta broke fear, swallowing every other emotion. In the car, John laid Carnation in the back seat. "We don't have time for an ambulance," he said. "The hospital is 7 minutes away. I can do it in 4. Just go." Benta choked, but as John slid into the driver's seat, he froze. His chest clenched, hard. His breath seized. Not now. Not now. He gripped the wheel, knuckles white, body trembling, fighting an episode with sheer will. Benta saw it instantly. Fear flashed through her, fear for both of them. "John," she said sharply, "get out." "No," he gasped. "I can drive. You can't. Switch. Now." He shook his head, breath jagged. "She needs me. She needs both of us alive." Her voice ricocheted through the car. John's eyes burned with anguish, but he slid out, collapsing to the pavement on his knees. He tried to rise, failed, tried again. Benta grabbed Carnation, moved her into the front seat, and buckled her in. "Stay awake for me, baby." "Mama," Carnation whispered. "Daddy's falling." Benta turned. John was on the ground now, hunched over, one hand pressed to his chest, breath ragged. For a split second, her heart split between two catastrophes. Carnation needed her, but John was dying too. Daddy, Carnation cried weakly. "Mama, help him. He can't breathe." Benta whispered, horror knotting inside her. "Mama, help him." Benta threw the car into park and rushed to John. His face was ashen. His heartbeat fluttered irregularly under her palm. Sweat drenched his forehead. "I'm fine," he rasped. "Get her to the hospital. You're not fine. I'll follow. Call a ride, go." "You can't even stand." He grabbed her wrist, eyes terrified. "Please don't leave me again." The words hit like a blow to the chest. She couldn't choose. She shouldn't have to choose. But life, once again, demanded the impossible. Carnation's faint cry snapped everything into focus. Benta lifted John with both arms, heavier than she remembered, weaker than she'd ever seen him, and eased him into the back seat beside their daughter. Then she slammed the door, ran to the driver's seat, and sped toward the hospital. "Both of you," she whispered, gripping the wheel so hard her hand cramped. "Stay with me." The hospital staff rushed them into separate rooms. Carnation was placed on urgent cardiac observation. John was wheeled into the adjoining room for immediate stabilization. Benta ran between the two until Dr. Rao grabbed her shoulders. "You can't treat them both," he said. You need to breathe. Let us work. I can't. My doctor. Rao pulled her into a steadying embrace. They're in the best hands. You trained half of us. She collapsed onto a chair, trembling violently, watching monitors flicker for both the people she loved most. Minutes felt like lifetimes. An hour felt like a century. Finally. Doctor. Rao emerged from Carnation's room with a small, tight smile. She's stable. The episode was triggered by exertion and fear. She's tired, but fine. Benta sagged in relief. And John, doctor? Rao hesitated. His condition was more severe stress-induced arrhythmia, oxygen drop, and near syncope. Her heart clenched. But he's conscious. Doctor, Rao said quietly, he's asking for you. Her breath hitched. She walked into his room slowly, dread and guilt chasing each step. John lay with an oxygen clip on his finger, monitors tracking his heart. He looked pale, exhausted, but alive. When he saw her, something in him loosened like surviving was worth it solely because she was there. You okay? He whispered. She didn't realize she was crying until her vision began to blur. You scared me. You scared me, he murmured. I thought I'd lose you both in the same minute. She shook her head. Why didn't you tell me your symptoms were getting worse? I didn't want to add weight to your shoulders. You almost died. You wouldn't let me. The room fell silent except for their synchronized breaths. I can't keep doing this, she finally said. I know, he whispered. Both of our hearts yours. Hers, they're too fragile. Mine was fragile long before today, and you still hide it. I'm not hiding anymore, he said softly. Not from you. Not from anything. Her voice cracked. I can't lose you. He closed his eyes, overwhelmed. Then don't let me go this time. She looked down. His hand was resting on the sheet, at the space beside it, at the life they could have had still within reach, if she dared. Her fingers brushed his. Electric. Familiar. Terrifying. Benta. He whispered. I love you. I always have. Even when I didn't deserve to. She lowered her forehead to their joined hands. And for the first time in 8 years, she whispered the truth she'd buried under anger and fear. I never stopped loving you. The machines hummed around them, recording not just heartbeats, but the beginning of something returning from the dead. The week after the dual emergency was a blur of quiet healing, whispered conversations, and fragile beginnings. Carnation recovered quickly with monitoring, her energy returning like sunlight breaking through fog. John's recovery was slower, every step measured, deliberate, cautious, but for the first time in years, he wasn't recovering alone. Benta felt the shift before she admitted it out loud. The walls she'd built cracked in places she didn't intend. The anger she'd hidden behind felt less like armor and more like exhaustion. The truth she'd tried to deny, her love for him, kept blooming, despite every attempt to bury it. But love didn't erase betrayal. Forgiveness didn't erase fear. Healing required something deeper, and she wasn't sure she was ready. Carnation was the glue between them, unaware of how many delicate threads she kept weaving. She called him daddy without hesitation, without guilt, without flinching. She wanted him at dinners, at errands, at bedtime stories. even if he sat in the living room while Benta tucked her in. One evening, after Carnation had fallen asleep with a book open on her chest, Benta found John sitting on her couch, staring at the family photos on the shelf. None included him. He stood when she approached. "I should go." "You don't have to." He hesitated. "You say that like it's temporary." "It could be." He nodded slowly, accepting her truth even if it bruised him. "How is she sleeping?" "Good." They stood in awkward tension, the air thick with unsaid words. Finally, he cleared his throat. "Can I ask you something?" "Depends." "What scares you more? Letting me back in, or letting yourself be loved again?" She stiffened. Caught off guard, he stepped closer, not invading, but close enough that she could feel the warmth radiating off him. "I won't rush you. I won't push. But I need you to know something." His voice softened. "When you walked out of that house 8 years ago, you didn't just take our daughter. You took every good thing I ever believed about myself. And when I found out the truth, when I realized what I'd done, there wasn't a single day I didn't beg the universe for another chance." He held her gaze. "I know I hurt you. I know I failed you. But I'm done hiding behind excuses. I want to build something real, something steady, something that doesn't break when life gets loud." Her breath wavered. "John." He stepped back, giving her room to breathe. "You don't have to say anything now." But she did. She didn't know how. The next afternoon, Carnation insisted on a walk around the neighborhood. Benta and John chaperoned, keeping pace beside her as she held both their hands. Passers-by smiled at the trio, beaming at a family that looked whole. And that was the problem. They looked like a family. But were they? As they turned the corner, Carnation suddenly stopped. "Take a picture." What Benta asked. "We've never taken one together." "Not one." "Can we?" "Please," John swallowed hard. "If your mother wants." "Yes," Benta said, surprising herself. "We can." Carnation grabbed her phone, set the timer, and hurried back between them. "Hug me so I don't fall." Benta placed an arm around her shoulders. John did the same. Carnation leaned into them with pride. The camera clicked. When the photo popped up on the screen, Benta felt something in her chest twist, beauty and grief tangled into one. They looked real. They looked like they would forever. They looked like what they could have been. And for the first time in years, the thought didn't hurt. It just ached gently. Carnation beamed. "We look perfect." John didn't speak. His eyes glistened. Daddy Carnation said, "You okay?" He nodded. "I'm better than okay." Benta met his gaze, and the world became painfully intimate. That night, after Carnation slept, Benta stepped out onto her balcony. The city lights flickered like distant stars. The air was cool, brushing against her skin like a whispered reminder that she was still alive. She didn't hear John approach until he stood at the doorway, hands in his pockets. "Should I leave?" he asked. "No." He joined her, leaning against the railing beside her. They watched the cars pass below, the silence thick but not suffocating. After a long moment, he spoke. "I'm scared." He admitted. "Of what?" "That you'll change your mind. That you'll decide you don't want any of this." She closed her eyes. I'm scared too. Of me, of what you make me feel. He exhaled shakily. And what's that? Like home, she whispered. He froze. Then he turned toward her slowly, as though afraid sudden movement would break the spell between them. Benta. She met his gaze. If we do this, it has to be done slowly, and honest, and safe, for all of us. Whatever pace you need, he murmured, and I need you to make a promise. Anything. No more secrets. No more believing other people over me. No more walking away when things get hard. He nodded. I promise with everything in me. She studied him, really studied him. The remorse, the love, the fear, the hope, and beneath it all, the man she once trusted with her life, and maybe could again. She stepped closer, heart pounding in her chest. He whispered, "What are you doing?" She slid her fingers into his, slow, gentle, intentional. His breath caught. "This doesn't mean everything is fixed," she said. "I know. It doesn't mean I forgive everything. I know. It means I'm willing to give it a try." John's eyes filled, his voice trembling. "You have no idea what that means to me." "I do." He cupped her face with trembling fingertips, but didn't lean in, didn't rush, didn't steal a moment he hadn't earned. He waited, and Benta finally, blessedly closed the distance, pressing her forehead to his, a simple touch, a silent vow, a new beginning. John whispered, voice breaking, "I love you." And this time Benta whispered back, "I love you too." Weeks later, on a quiet Sunday morning, Carnation burst into the bedroom holding a drawing with 3 stick figures holding hands. "I drew our family," she announced. Benta smiled. "It's beautiful." John kissed the top of her head. "It's perfect." Carnation pointed at the tallest figure. "That's Daddy. He's staying forever." John looked at Benta for permission, and she nodded. "Yes," she said softly. "He is." Carnation cheered. "Good, because I already planned our future. All 3 of us." Benta laughed, pulling her daughter into her arms. John wrapped his arms around them both carefully, reverently, as though holding the world. For the first time in 8 years, their hearts beat not in fear, but in harmony, and the family they were always meant to be finally stepped into, there forever together.